All right, Gator fans. Well, the world's largest outdoor cocktail party was a heartbreaker for more reasons than one. Let's jump right into it. Okay, so the Gators lost to the Bulldogs 34-20 at Everbank Field yesterday. And I think if you just looked at the ESPN ticker, let's say you're not a fan of either one of these teams and you're just watching it scroll along the bottom, you probably thought that Georgia took care of business and beat a team that they should beat and that Florida was never really, even in it, right? That is not what I saw on Saturday when I watched this game. I watched a Gator defense that was ready to play and really took advantage of Carson Beck's mistakes. I watched a true freshman quarterback that was absolutely not intimidated by this vaunted Georgia team, the number 2 team in the country. I saw an offensive line that by and large gave their quarterback time. I saw a coaching staff that I felt like called a better game than we've seen them call in a long time. And then we saw disaster, right? When DJ Lagway went down with an apparent hamstring injury and watching the entire team come on the field to check on him as he's getting loaded up into, the cart was kind of surreal. This is a true freshman who has only been the starter for 2 weeks, right? And he has earned the full support and respect of this entire team. And honestly, had the Gators positioned to potentially upset the number 2 team in the country. I think that there were a lot of positives that I saw on Saturday. And, yesterday on social media, I really wanted to be able to highlight that. Social media was interesting to watch yesterday, though. I feel like there are very strong opinions on who this loss falls on and whether or not the injury to Lagway affects Napier being retained or not. And, I think that where I'm at on this is the reality is this. There has been a lot of blame on Coach Napier during his tenure, blame that he has earned, right? I am not sitting here and telling you that, more time, more time, more time, he's fixing it. There have been losses that have fallen squarely on the shoulders of this coaching staff. I put Tennessee there as one of those. I put Arkansas last year. I think there's an argument to be made for Utah last year. I mean, there are just losses that inexplicably have happened and fall on the shoulders of this coaching staff. This is not one of those losses. This team showed up ready to play. The game plan was there. And I think most of all, something that is so important for me to see is that the effort was there. I was definitely not pleased with the effort coming out of this team the first couple games of the season. They weren't playing hard enough. They weren't working hard enough. And this coaching staff wasn't on them enough to fix those mistakes. But that has changed during the course of this season. This team is playing with 100% effort on every play. This team doesn't know what the word quit means. This team has not given up on that coaching staff. And I do think that all of that is a credit to Coach Napier. And even though Lagway went down in the second quarter, the Gators went into the locker room up at halftime. They got a stop early in the first quarter. They held Georgia to that field goal deep, deep in Florida territory. I think that's a huge win that Georgia didn't score a touchdown right then. And then 2 interceptions from Carson Beck that Florida took advantage of, which is something that we also haven't seen as much under the Napier era. If we do make something good happen, not capitalizing on it. But we capitalized yesterday, 10 points in fact. That helps, right? And then coming out of halftime, Florida's defense forced a 3rd interception. But that's about where, the good stuff kind of ended, right? In the fourth quarter, the Gators tied it up 20-20, but then Georgia went up 2 scores. They capitalized on that special teams blunder, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, and then an interception, right, from backup quarterback Aiden Warner. This special teams blunder is something that I want to talk about. It cost this team yesterday. It was a low snap that blew past holder Jeremy Crawshaw. And now listen, I am going to be in the minority here, but that snap should have been caught. Was it a great snap? No, it was definitely not. It was a low snap, but it was a catchable snap. The problem is that Crawshaw tried to scoop and set the ball in one motion, which is what you would do with a perfect snap. The actual correct move here, though, with a low snap or a wild snap, is to catch it and pin it to the ground. Then pick it up and set it, stand it up how your kicker wants it. Two motions. That is how you mitigate the absolute disaster that we saw. Now, is there still a risk that the holder doesn't get it up in time? Yes, there is. But then all you've got at that point is a missed extra point, as opposed to the 30 plus yards that were lost as this ball went wildly behind the field goal unit. Essentially, two mistakes as opposed to one cost us this one. And in a bubble, mistakes happen. And two people that have been incredibly reliable for the Gators, Rocco Underwood and Jeremy Crawshaw, they're not perfect. There's not anyone on this team that is perfect. You know, you get a quarterback that overthrows somebody, we don't think twice about it after his next throw, right? You get a wide receiver that drops the ball, he catches the next one, so we don't worry about it. Mistakes are highlighted more on special teams because there are so few opportunities. So the spotlight is bright. But these are two guys who have been incredibly reliable for the Gators. But from a 30,000 foot view, right, there are blunders in almost every single game of the Billy Napier era. And because of that, these things don't happen in a bubble. I don't blame the individual players. I blame the coaching staff because that makes me feel like these things are not being worked on enough in practice. We see mistakes, blunders in every single game. After that happened, a late throw by Aiden Warner that was picked up by Georgia kind of sealed this one for the Dogs, right? I truly believe the Gators would have won this game if DJ Lagway had played the entire time. But injuries are a part of this sport. That is why winning the games that you are supposed to matters, right? Going into this game, Coach Napier was 1-9 against Florida's rivals. And if he wasn't 1-9, let's say he's, got 5 or 6 wins right there instead of 1, I think maybe he gets a pass for this one. But the reality is this outcome could have played out any other given week of Coach Napier's tenure because that's what we've seen. We have seen him continually, time after time, not win the games he's supposed to, not beat rivals. So while I absolutely believe that this team was ready to play and very well could have won this game with a healthy DJ Lagway, the outcome is no different than what we have watched in almost every game that has mattered over the last 3 seasons. So now we're in a situation where we're potentially riding with a third string quarterback for the remainder of the season. We have not been officially told that DJ Lagway is out for the year. What we've been told is a soft tissue injury. I can tell you, I don't know that I remember anybody coming back from a hamstring in just a week or two. I would think that if it's a grade 3 or grade 2, we're looking at probably anywhere between 3 to 6 weeks on his return. And, and that's if it's not torn. There were reports that he was walking without crutches to the team bus last night. I think that's a good sign. Was very caught off guard when the cart came out there for a hamstring injury. I don't think that that's common. So, we're just kind of in a wait and see mode for Coach Napier to tell us the extent of this injury. But I think at the very least, Florida's going to Texas with Aiden Warner, right? And that means that this coaching staff is going to have to get back to the drawing board immediately in Gainesville and figure out what they can do to potentially give Florida a chance in this game. And we're going to have to be looking out for that injury report on defense where we saw like 7 guys leave the field. It's not a good situation for Coach Napier to be in at all. And I hate that this team is as banged up as it is. But the reality is if we had taken care of business in other seasons earlier in this year, we wouldn't be looking under the next couple of games under such a microscope, right? And I don't know that I think that you move the goalposts because there are injuries, because injuries happen. We didn't move the goalposts for Muschamp when he had the most injured team Florida had ever seen the year that he got fired. So I think the bar's still 6, right? And I think at this point, that looks really difficult. And I think the other factor of that is we have the 51st recruiting class in the country. And there could be more people that decommit, at any moment. So all of that has to be taken into consideration. But no matter what the outcome of this game was, Coach Napier wasn't getting fired after this game. I think we ride with him the rest of the season, and we just kind of see the situation got 10 times harder with the injuries that happened yesterday. We're praying for all of them. We hope for speedy recoveries. Hopefully some of them looked worse than they actually were, and maybe we can get some of these guys back faster. And I think it is entirely possible to be incredibly impressed and proud of what we saw on the field yesterday and still think that Napier's probably not the guy still. And I think there's lots of us in that boat, right? This team fought their butts off yesterday. We saw a lot of good things. We are watching a defense improve in front of our eyes, right? 3 interceptions, 2 of them that this offense capitalized on is improvement. I just don't know that it's happening fast enough. But this definitely complicates the situation for sure. What do you guys think? I want to hear about it down in the comments. And then, of course, make sure you're tuned in because we'll have lots more content coming your way because it is the very first time that Florida will play Texas in conference play. It's an exciting week. I'll talk to you guys later. As always, go Gators.